Hi, Ashley.
Well, hey there. How are you, Robin?
Cute backgrounds we have.
I mean, I think mine's the cutest. It's, of course, Robin's face. You can see it in the YouTube video. She was like, where did you get that picture? Like, I can find anything if I really want to.
Oh, my gosh. That was taken.
Yeah, what's the background of this?
Yeah, I don't remember what year it was taken. I went down to visit my mom in Atlanta, and she had wanted to take the train. There's some Christmas train in the mountains, and we did it. My friend Leslie was with us, so it was my mom, her husband John, Leslie, and I.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked, I believe it was Santa or one of his helpers to take our picture. And everybody was just amazed, like, why would you ask Santa to take your picture? And I was like, because I want Santa to take my picture. So anyways, Santa
Like, you can't be an adult and take a picture with Santa?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do.
I think that's absurd.
No.
I would. That is 100% what you would do.
It is a million.
And I second that.
Yep. We had Santa come to one of the admin buildings that I work at. And I dropped everything and got my picture taken with Santa.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah.
I wish I had been the one to take your picture. I would be that person. So, Robin, can you tell everyone what an amazing week we've had?
We had such a week.
Yes.
So first of all, my husband and I went on vacation the middle to end of June. We went out on June 19th. Mm-hmm. And we will do a little mini-sode on my vacation, what you've been up to, mm-hmm. and our awesome vacation starting on July 1st. Mm-hmm. And it was during the COVID pause. So before people get all up in arms about that, it was really during the lull of COVID. Anyway, Ashley and I had an amazing time. Ashley came up to Wisconsin, and we will be doing fun. It was fun. We'll be doing a mini-sode on our adventures.
Yes. But again, we were very social distant, so please understand that we spent most of the time apart from other people. But yes, keep an eye out for the mini-sode. We'll talk about what we did.
And our masks.
And we did a lot of personal growth, I would say. It was a very enriching experience for me, I think. And you too.
It was. We did a lot of talking about it, and that's what our guest is today. Mm-hmm. He really brings a lot of interesting facets to anybody's life. He works, he trades, and he's been doing 100 miles a month running. I think it's amazing. As we all know, I do not like to run. I'm not a runner. So when I saw that Mark was posting his 100 miles a month, I knew we had to get him on the show.
Yeah. So welcome, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. Good to be here.
And exactly how do you pronounce your last name, which is why I didn't pronounce it to begin with.
You wouldn't be the first one to ever mistakenly pronounce it. So it is Suchomel. It rhymes with book-o-mel. That's the only way I can describe it.
I for some reason thought it was Suchomel.
Yeah, I've heard about 100 variations.
Suchomel. Okay. Yep. That's so cool.
Yep.
And interestingly, Mark and Ashley knew each other for quite some time. They've actually met in person. Mm-hmm. And so when I brought up the idea to Ashley about having Mark on, she tells me, oh yeah, I know Mark. We've seen each other face to face. We went to I don't know if it's a conference or a live event. And I thought, well, holy cow, Ashley already knows Mark.
And his wife, and she's amazing.
We had about an hour and a half long chat in Florida, about a year or so ago, a little more than a year now.
It was so fun. I love meeting, and I mean, he does everything. I'm telling you, he was thinking start his own business. He's a go-getter. Love talking. It was great.
I did that actually.
What?
I just passed 1 year last week.
Oh my gosh. Where have I been? I'm not really on Facebook or anything, and I don't think I follow you on Instagram or anything. So I just haven't known. That's incredible. Congratulations. We'll have to talk about that after we talk about the running portion. Yeah. That's amazing. Cool.
So knowing Mark and joining his Facebook page, actually Mark was one of our very first followers to the I Can Do Anything podcast. So thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. Woo! Cheers in the background.
That's right.
And I started following Mark. I said to Ashley, do you know who this is? And Ashley said, yes, he's an amazing individual. Follow him. So I started following Mark, and I was so inspired by, again, running 100 miles a month. And Mark, I don't think that's how you got started, though, with the 100 miles a month. Did you start with trying to run a marathon?
Yes. So I've been running since high school ish. So I was in cross country years ago,
Wow.
and I was in cross country in high school for the sole purpose of staying in shape so I could play baseball in the spring. So baseball was my first passion and always was, and played into college actually. And I used cross country to stay in shape, keep my, lungs in shape, legs in shape, etc. And I did that for a couple of years. I ended up actually losing too much weight. I got so thin that it was a detriment to playing baseball and having strength. So I stopped doing that and actually just kind of ran casually off and on for many years. And I got into it. I ran the Chicago Marathon in 2014 after I moved to the Chicago area, which I'm in now. And so that was my first marathon ever. So I figured if I was going to do one, I might as well do a big one just in case I absolutely hate it and never want to do it again. At least I did often. A big one. I did the Chicago, where people have heard of it, right?
Yeah.
Smart.
So then I got into probably taking a break from running because it was, a hurdle to overcome, and I didn't do much running after that. I did a half, I think, the following year, but not a lot. And then this year in January, I had a small surgery that I had to recover from. I couldn't do any running. So I had to take off probably 6 or 8 weeks or so. So that was early January, couldn't really do anything through February. And when it got to March, I had only run like 6 or 7 miles in total in the month of March. And so I decided that I wanted to do more. And with all the COVID stuff kind of starting, I had no more commute. I didn't have to drive to and from work in the morning. So it was a lot easier to run in the morning. I didn't have to get up at 5. I could start at 5:30, and that extra half hour was amazing. So I quite literally wrote down a plan to run a marathon at the end of April. So on April 30th, I was going to run a marathon. And the first time I ran the marathon, I found a plan online, and it was weeks and weeks and weeks of training. And it was like 3 or 4 months worth. And I just figured it's probably possible to do it in less time than that, because I didn't want to do it at the end of the summer when it's a million degrees outside. So I just quite literally picked out a blank map off of Google Images, wrote down the number of miles I was going to run, kind of estimating each week as I went, with 26.2 at the end. And I just kind of followed that through. It was about 143 miles total for the month. And I ran the marathon on the windiest day ever, I think. It was so terrible. It was like 35 mile an hour gusty winds. And I woke up, I remember looking at the weather forecast the night before. I'm like, oh, this is going to be terrible. I don't I can't just not do it. I can't run it on May 1st. That just defeats the whole purpose of going from 1 month. So I survived. I actually ran about 20 minutes or so faster than my Chicago marathon. So that was good. I wanted to be under 4.5 hours. So I beat that a little bit. So
that was so cool. What I really enjoyed about it was the video of your wife and I think one of your kids holding the tape or the, I don't know what it is.
Finish line.
It's just the cutest.
Whatever. Yeah. And it was so cute. They were so proud of you. Just the picture alone, you didn't even have to talk to them to know how much they supported you and how proud of you they were.
Yep, absolutely. And they actually met me out on the course. So I did a 13.1 mile loop 2 times. So I did the 13.1 back. So I ended up back in my house halfway, kind of refueled, re-Gatorade, etc. And then I went back out on the loop again, and they met me halfway at about 6.5. And I was like, I asked my wife, I said, please bring all of these things. I have no idea what I'll want at that point. And she was amazing and had all of them and then some. And, I had jelly beans, I had banana, I had oranges, I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I had all of it. And so I was like, oh, that sounds terrible. That sounds terrible. That sounds amazing. Let's go with that. And so they got back in the van, drove back home, and met me there. It was a great day.
What is the one thing you would do different if you had to do it again?
For that particular event?
Yeah.
Oh, I would probably try to vary the routes that I ran. It was extremely repetitive.
Yeah.
And luckily it was only 2 loops, so that wasn't too horrible. And actually I'd only run that loop one time before going on the actual marathon itself, just to see what the lay of the land was. So in Illinois, it is dead flat. There's, no hills whatsoever. I look at my watch and it says, you gained 21 feet during that 12 miles.
Oh my gosh. That's
like
really
literally nothing.
That's nothing.
Yeah. So the first time I ran the loop, I was like, oh, there's inclines. I won't call them hills, but it was more than a few feet.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of an eye-opening thing. So I didn't train at all for hills. So it was kind of the hills, and the wind that day was brutal. And then also I had tried, just for safety reasons, I was doing a free trial of one of the apps. I forget which running app it was, but it has a live tracking feature. And so I was basically streaming my location just in case I had a problem. And the first time I'd used it was the day of the marathon, of course. And my phone battery died at about mile 22, 23. So then I couldn't listen to anything. I was listening to an audiobook, and then it's always like dead silent the last 3.5 or so miles.
That's hard.
Terrible.
Yes.
So lots of things I'd do over. Now I know about the app. I have a better idea of what to eat. Train for the hills, of course. So those few things.
Interesting question. Oh, go ahead, Ashley.
Oh, go ahead. It's okay.
I always have a million questions.
I know we always talk over each other. So
yeah, don't be offended.
I know.
No.
Go ahead.
So you may or may not know, Mark, but our listeners know that Ashley and I were supposed to do, I was going to do a 6-point, is it 1.5 or 1.3 in Nashville in April?
615, yeah.
6.15 is the area code. And then Ashley was going to do a half marathon. And then in August, Ashley was going to come up and do a half marathon with me on August 22nd. Well, now that with COVID, we're doing a lot of virtual events now. And I still plan to do the half marathon, which is only 13.1. It still is going to be a lot for me to do.
Still a
but
challenge.
I'm going to,
don't minimize your accomplishments.
Sure.
No, I know. I guess because I feel like I should be further along in my training than I have, because I really stopped training and just starting now to get back into it. Anyway, I was thinking earlier, how am I going to do the 13.1? And I came up with the same theory you did. I would just do 2 loops as best I can. And I thought, when you were saying about how it got so repetitive, did you mean the 2 loops got repetitive, or those were the same loops that you continually trained on that got competitive?
So those two loops themselves were not repetitive, because I'd only done it one time before, and then the day of the event. But a lot of the training runs, like my first 4 miles, was almost always the same.
The same. Okay.
Anytime, whether I went 4, 6, 8, or 10, the first 4 and then like the last 3 or 4 were always the same. And I mean, I knew those roads step by step, and that part got repetitive.
And what about your equipment, shoes, workout gear? Since you had been a runner in high school, you most likely knew the importance of having the correct shoes or the correct running shoe.
So it's funny you say that.
I want to know why he's laughing.
because I do know the importance, but that doesn't mean I have the new shoes. So I had the same pair of shoes, let's see, from when I started training for the Chicago Marathon in 2014. So it's 2020. I got a new pair of shoes probably halfway through the training for this marathon.
Oh my goodness. And that's hard in the middle of training to switch. Because did you get blisters?
No, actually. The only blisters I ever got was the day of the event. Because I hadn't been out for that many hours before.
Yeah.
So I did get a new pair of shoes. I probably put between 500 and 600 miles or so, probably more, on the first pair of shoes. And I think kind of the rough guidance is to put 300 to 400, depending. So they were well overdue, of course.
Yeah.
But
they
made it
well,
through
though.
all the snow and the winters and all the things. So, and actually, I was able to buy the same brand, just the newest version of the model of shoe that I had. And so I knew that, so I don't know anything about shoe technicals, but like the heel drop and the width and everything was appropriate. So I liked it. And so I knew that if I had that, I could be comfortable buying them online, because I couldn't go to a shoe store to try them on.
Mm-hmm.
I had bought the other ones at a running company in Naperville, and they go in, they wear, you put them on, you wear them, you run on a treadmill, they watch you run, and they fit them for you. And I couldn't do that this time.
And what about?
This is awesome. That's just awesome.
What about things to wear? I'm thinking about people who may have been listening for a few months and keep getting inspired to go out and either walk or do some running. What kind of like sweatpants? Do you have to have special things? I have found that I don't need to have any special shirts. I don't have to go to Lululemon. I don't need any of that stuff. But I mean, ladies do wear sports bras typically, but have you found that any particular style clothing is better than anything else? Or if you're brand new to walking or running, is it more important to just get out there and start doing it than worrying about your clothing?
Start doing it. I think you get used to whatever you have, but I think kind of for purpose equipment is the way to go. I mean, you don't have to spend a bunch of money on like the best running shorts you can find, but shorts that are made for running or walking are way better than shorts that are not. I mean, I don't have anything in particular. I have Under Armour, I have Nike, and it's nothing super fancy. And I think it's just use it and you get used to it.
Mm-hmm. That brings up a whole just can of worms, I feel like, because I have never, I mean, it gets cold in Nashville, but it doesn't get Chicago and Illinois and Wisconsin cold. So when I have like it's the same in the summer, but when I have trained, let's say in the fall or something, training in the cold is another level of training. How did you, I mean, I'm sure you can see for runners and people who have done this before, it's different breathing. I mean, you feel like your throat is on fire from the breathing, and you start off with a lot of layers because you're cold, but then you're running and sweating, and then you're all of a sudden too hot. And so you have to shed layers, but then if you shed too many layers, you can get hypothermia. And so how do you manage, I mean, how does the difference in running in like decent weather to cold weather, how has that been a challenge for you, and how did you overcome it?
So it's always nice to run when it's about 55 degrees and calm, of course, because you can warm up and you're not dying of heat, but you're not freezing either. Mm-hmm. Like this time of year when it's 80 degrees by 10 a.m., it's a little intense. So I get up early and try and run before it gets bad. But in the winter, it's a different ball game. I usually wear a pair of running pants. I think they're Under Armour. That I really like. And then I have an Under Armour long sleeve shirt that is their cold gear, I think they call it. That's, somewhat insulated. Mm-hmm. But I'll wear basically just that and maybe one more shirt over if it's extra windy, just to kind of block the wind. But I don't lose any layers when I run. I tend to start really cold and I know that I'm going to warm up. Okay. And if it's bad, I'll wear gloves, and sometimes I wear a hat in the winter. Just to keep the heat in a little bit, but it's cold. I'll go out and run kind of down to about 18 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Below that, it's kind of intense.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I will not be doing that.
I was thinking 30 degrees.
Yeah.
No.
Mark and I will be never running together if the temperature is below 40.
18 degrees.
As long as it's
like
not
instant
too windy.
freeze if you put your hand out.
Yeah, as long as it's not. Yeah, it's fun. You get the little hairs on your arms get all frosted, and
oh my gosh!
You stop running and you're just kind of steaming.
Yeah. Because that was when I was gonna say, do you just run on a treadmill? But I mean, I'm a proponent of a treadmill is completely different than road running. Like,
oh yeah, not even close.
Well, if we talked about monotony earlier, running on a treadmill for 20 something miles seems the most monotonous task you could do. But then it's like, it's different because there's something moving underneath you,
and there's no wind. There's no breeze.
Yes, the wind is different. Like you're not having to account for the little rocks in the road, because you need a little bit of stability when you're running. That's something that I wasn't told when I started running.
Sure.
And so, yeah, like I've seen people who have trained for running these marathons in the gym, and I'm like, no, you need to get out on the road. It's a completely different ball game, and especially because the weather is so different. In a gym, you have a controlled humidity, a perfect 70 degrees.
Right.
And then you don't have that on a marathon day. It could be very hot or completely cold. So that's really interesting. Kudos to you for doing that, because a lot of people, when it's below a certain degree, it's a no for them, which is even more inspiring.
It is incredible. Yeah. It is amazing. Leading up to it, Mark, any kind of nutritional plans that you had, or was it more just clean eating, common sense?
Yeah, it was mainly common sense. I don't have really a plan for nutrition necessarily, other than kind of the night before longer runs. So if I was going out for probably 12 miles or farther, I would try to kind of eat a normal, maybe smaller dinner, and then have something before I went to bed that had some protein in it that would keep me full. Because I never eat before I go running. So I always run in the morning, because I tend to run on an empty stomach. I don't usually eat anything or drink anything beforehand, maybe a sip of water. So that way I have enough energy when I start. But usually I don't even really eat anything on the run. I've come to use the Gatorade. It makes something called, they have an endurance formula, and it was primarily made for professional athletes. It wasn't available to kind of consumers until, many years after it had been out. But I find that to be very helpful, and I just take literally a couple of sips of that every mile or so along the way, and that helps tremendously, except for, the actual marathon, when I did have to eat something towards the end. But
how did you grow into the next month doing another 100? So you did the marathon, and what made you continue 100 miles a month?
So the next month, I probably did almost nothing the 10 days following the marathon, because it was like, that was the goal. I did the goal. That's the end of it. And I was like, I need to do something, get loose again, feel good again. Cause you get that runner's high. You do it long enough. It's like, if I don't start my day with a few miles, I can just tell, by 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, I just don't have all the energy that I would normally have, which is weird, because you get up earlier, you expend all this energy, and then you feel like you have energy later. But it's very true, and it's something I enjoy, getting out of running. But so I didn't do very many miles the first third of the month, and then I heard about the David Goggins challenge, the 4x4x48, and I was only on pace for probably about 50 or 60 miles for the month. And I heard about that challenge and ended up doing it the last basically 48 hours of the month. And so that was 48 miles in the last 2 days, which got me over 100. So there was really no specific plan to get to 100 that month, because I had done 143, I think, was in March or April rather. And then in May, I think I did 118 or so with that challenge. So that was a whole nother beast.
And then what took you into June to do another 100?
I think just the fact that I had done 2 in a row.
Yeah.
And I had never done, I think I'd done 100-mile month ever before, and that was last August. And that's when I just had been feeling good running. I don't know if the weather was cooperating, whatever it was, but I'd gotten to 100, and that was the first time I'd ever done that. And so I was like, oh, well, I just did it 2 months in a row. Now I'm going to intentionally do 100 this month and make it 3 in a row. But after the 4x4x48, the same thing happened, where I didn't do anything for the first 7, 8, 9 days. And I was like, oh, well, now the average per day to get 100 is a lot higher. So it was a different challenge again. So
you're setting a precedent up for yourself now. So now when you don't do 100 in a month. It's going to feel really bad.
Well, basically, all I need to do is focus on the first 9 days, and everything will be fine.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's so. I think. Would you talk a little bit on the importance of visualization? So I think, so for me, COVID has seemed to be like a second New Year's, not in a celebration way, but like people at the beginning of New Year's have all these like resolutions and everything. And then when COVID started, everyone kind of reset their New Year's resolutions and were like, well, I got the time now. I'm going to get into that hobby. I'm going to start running. And even then, a lot of people at the beginning were doing all these exercise challenges, and then they kind of tapered off again, just like New Year's. So I think when you said you were took a plan and you wrote down all the miles you wanted to get, that's really important, because I've been really reading recently in a lot of the books, talking and watching YouTube videos on the importance of visualization and scripting and writing down what you want, because that adds that extra layer of helping you achieve these goals. So do you mind talking on the importance of making sure that you visually see what you want to do in order to attain the goals that you want to hit?
Yeah. And so absolutely. The way I finished June was quite literally on a sticky note where I wrote, I had 7 boxes the last 7 days of the month. And I figured out I needed, what was it? I think it was like 43 miles in the last 7 days. And I wrote out what number I was going to do each day to get to 43. And having that written down kind of eliminated the thought process of, okay, what am I going to run today? Because there is that very small amount of time when you wake up in the morning that you can decide to do it or not do it. Or I was going to do 6, but maybe I only do 4 today.
Right.
And removing that chance helps a lot. And for the month that I did the marathon, writing down the entire month was like, oh, tomorrow I have nothing. And then, oh, tomorrow I have 9. And it would just flow a lot more easily. And I wouldn't have to even think about it. It's like, that's what the plan says. I wrote the plan, so follow the plan. And I think it helps tremendously. And I don't know that I necessarily visualize what it would look like finishing necessarily, but kind of visualizing day by day. Or if I knew I had 4 miles 2 days in a row where I did the same route, and then suddenly I had to do 10, then I could start imagining a new route that I could run that would be interesting. Or if I knew, oh, it's going to take me, an hour and 20 minutes or whatever it is. And it's like, well, what should I listen to for an hour and 20 minutes? Because I have a whole bunch of time to do that.
And so Mark listened to the I Can Do Anything podcast.
I did. I listened probably 4, maybe 5 episodes.
Oh, thank you. What kind of books do you listen to on audiobook when you're doing that? You mentioned that you were one of your, was it your iPod or your watch died?
My phone died.
Your phone died. Okay.
Yeah, I was listening to Audible. I was listening to Can't Hurt Me, the David Goggins story.
Okay.
And I'm trying to remember now. So I've restarted listening to it again sometime later now. So I think that was the first time that I was listening to it.
Oh, okay.
And so I don't remember when I started it in the training, but I was coming towards the end of it when the phone died, and it was like, oh, this is the end of the story. Like, wrap it up. So it's like I had that, and then not listening to anything. But I guess I listened to a lot of those development type books, a lot of kind of financial growth books, those kinds of things. I find it easy to listen to them. I listened to The Power of Now. That was a good one.
Great book.
Yeah, I've heard you mention that a couple times.
I'm almost done with that book right now.
Yeah, you had it on your side table when I went up there. It's just, it changes your mind in so many ways, especially if you're running. I feel like there is quite a power now. Like when you're running, you have to be so in tune with your body and just feeling, I don't know, that's how I am. Like I am very in the now when I run, and I'm not necessarily from the book, but you just have to be in tune with how you're breathing. And I don't know. Why are you laughing, Robin?
Because I can't believe you have that background behind you. It kills me every time I look at it. Anyway.
You're so cute. I love it. Your eyes are piercing in it, though. It's because it blew up and it's very pixelated because it's a very small picture on the internet. But
oh my God.
Sorry. Yeah, Power of Now, great. Side note, no, Power of Now is a great book. I have one of his other ones that I need to read.
Yeah, and that one is especially good as an audiobook, I think. That
Really? Does he
so
read
I
it?
only, yeah.
Oh, he has a
And so
beautiful accent.
when you hear his voice, it
Mhm.
sounds exactly like you think it should,
Really?
based
Oh yeah, I've
on
heard him
the
speak.
content, and it's very meditative. I mean, you could almost just,
Mhm.
scroll, into hour 3 and just have a 20-minute meditation. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just that easy to listen to. And running, it was that calming distraction that you kind of
Yeah.
forget that you're out doing this.
Mhm.
At least that's how I felt.
Going back to your schedule, was there ever a time that you planned, let's say, the 4 hours or sorry, the 4 miles or the 9 miles, and you didn't make it in the morning and then you had to go back in the afternoon to finish it?
Um, I
Good
don't think
question, Robin.
so. I don't think so. I would usually, if I had to run longer, I would either get up earlier or working from home now, without having a commute. I don't have like a, specific start time. Um, and I would always do the longest runs on Saturdays and Sundays.
Okay.
So mostly, I think the longest I ever ran during the week was 8. And so 8, that was about a little over an hour, probably about an hour and 10 minutes.
When
That's
you
not bad at all.
when you started running, were you? I mean, growing up doing cross country, I'm sure you're able to run like a mile straight. But how did you start with intervals, or for like our new runners, how would you suggest maybe they start? Because I heard for people were like, well, just run as long as you can. But I've also heard runner. I mean, I know it's different for every person, but some people will say run 2 minutes, walk 1 minute as a way to start. What worked for you? That
Yeah, that's thinking back a ways. Cross country was like go and don't come back.
yeah, I see the kids running cross country near me sometimes, and they just.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was not a good cross country runner at all. I was never on, the varsity team. I always ran like the second or third race of the meet. And
Yeah,
I was not out there to win any medals. That's for sure. Um,
I'm just here to stay in shape, guys.
yeah,
Don't want anything else of
the
me.
workouts that I remember were 1 mile loops. So
Okay.
you would run a mile, and they say, this one. I mean, it doesn't matter whatever the time is, but we would target say 7 minutes, and you'd try and run a mile in 7 minutes, and then you
Oh,
get 2 minutes off,
yeah.
and then you have to run it in 6:50, and then you get some time off, and you have to run it in 6:40, and we would do those. And again, I was terrible at it. I never made the time required, but there are elite people who do those things.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that's a good way to start. It doesn't have to be a mile. It could be, run a quarter mile and take a break, or walk and then do another quarter mile. And if you can do that back to back, then you can do, you make that break shorter and shorter, and pretty soon you have no break, and then you're running a mile continuously, or you're 2 miles
Mhm.
continuously. And I think if you kind of keep building up and just run a little bit further, the next time, and don't exert yourself to the point that you don't like it anymore, because then you won't go back. It's got to be uncomfortable enough that you're tired and you're getting value out of it, but not so unfun that you're never going to start again.
Someone once told me that if you're not throwing up after a workout, that it's not a good workout. And I 100% don't agree with that,
No way.
because that makes it unfun.
Yes.
There is no reason you should be doing that. And that's really bad for your body, too.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah. Your
body
body's
does.
not. I mean, it's made to do that, but not
Yeah.
really made to do.
It's made to do that in an emergency
That's
situation.
right.
Like if there's something wrong with you, or you put poison into your body, it's not meant to do it when you're running. So
No, you
I
will
don't
never see me throwing up.
I don't ascribe to that. I don't. If anyone has told you that before, I really tell you that's not a good idea, because I think you're right. It's like, do it where you're a little bit uncomfortable, where you're pushing the boundary a little bit, but not to the point where you're hurting yourself, because sorry, you could see my door. I have like a little aura. Yeah. So don't throw up when you're running.
No, and I really like being. So I'm kind of the data nerd. So I like seeing, tracking results, and seeing, how many feet of elevation, or how many steps,
Mhm.
or whatever it is. Have a metric that you can measure, and go against each time.
What app do you use? Did you say? I don't think you mentioned. You said your phone.
Yeah,
Do you
so
use a
I
specific
was
app?
using Fitbit for a very long
Okay.
time,
Fitbit.
but I've switched to Garmin. So I got a new Garmin watch,
Oh,
and
that's
so
a
I
good
use
one.
Garmin Connect app.
Mhm.
So I had a Garmin watch from years and years ago, because I could use it for running as well as cycling. So I had a road bike for a little while, and I could clip it on my bike so it could tell me speed and all that. But it was giant. It was like almost the size of a deck of cards. It seemed. It was huge. So it's just not practical. So they've become so much smaller now, and so it was a nice replacement.
Yeah, are you on track for July for 100?
I am. I'm at about, let's see, today, I think I'm about 35, 40 or so right now.
Left?
I'm a little behind, but that's doable.
Yeah,
that's 100% doable.
Yeah.
Yeah, you still have 15 days.
Do you think
I want to figure out a plan to do a 100-mile week, but I haven't written that down yet.
Yeah, that's a lot on your muscles, but I'm excited to see you do it. I'm sure you can.
Of course you can.
And I had that thought. It was like, how many miles is that per day? And it's like, oh, that's a lot of early mornings for a long time. It's almost a half per day.
Marathon. Yeah, half marathon.
Yeah, it's like 11 something per day. But then somebody said, well, what if you ran in the morning and in the evening? I was like, oh, well, that's kind of a no-brainer then. I mean,
yeah,
the same amount of time, but it's not nearly as, exhausting. I wouldn't think. I haven't done it yet, but yeah.
Do you think you're going to do 100 miles throughout the rest of the year?
I would like to try and do 6 months in a row. That's my goal presently. So halfway. So that'd be July, August, September, like the hottest months of the year, of course. But yeah, doing October, November, December, that would be much more nice in terms of weather. We'll see. Yeah, I'm aiming for 6 months in a row now. So having only done one last year, 6 sounds good to me.
What month is the best weather in Illinois? That's a side note.
It depends what you like to do.
Like a fall day? I mean, I just like a crisp breeze.
So, I mean, we get spring
shorts
for about 3.5 days, and then it's summer, and then we usually get winter again, and then it's summer again. Then I liked running in April. It depends on the year though, because sometimes April can be really bad in terms of rain and wind. This year was pretty nice actually, but yeah, then into October is probably the nice month for a fall day.
Okay. Yeah, I only know it is very hot or very cold there, so I'm like, surely there's got to be a fall.
Yeah, it's like spring. It's a solid 3 or 4 hours in the afternoon one day, and then it's over. Yeah, we'll move on.
Well, you have wind there. I mean, you have very windy days, which is good for the breeze, but bad for your running times because you have, unless it's behind you, and that's fantastic.
And it's nicer in the morning too, because it is more calm in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So in the beginning of the podcast, you talked about your business. Do you want to go into a little bit about your business and tell us how you got started and when you got started?
Yeah, sure. I'm not really, there's not many people in the world that know yet.
If you don't want to talk about it,
if you don't want to, it's fine.
No, let's talk about it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. You can do anything, Mark.
That's right. So the name of the business is Engineered Workflows. It is a consulting company where I help individuals and businesses with primarily Excel, but really any software application. So using them more efficiently and more effectively. In kind of my corporate job, through many corporate jobs that I've had, using software has always been very easy to me. I can figure out how to use it, how to get a lot out of it. I work at the edges where it starts to have limitations where, oh no, it does that, but not quite that thing that you really want to do. And so I find all the tools, I use all the buttons and the toolbars that people are like, I didn't even know that was there. Yeah, it was there actually like 7 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm the person who knows all of those random things. But yeah, it started as a kind of an on the side, kind of helping out my dad actually. So he works at a bank in Wisconsin, and I was helping. He knew I was good at Excel, and so he would text me, how do I do this in Excel, or what's a better way to do this, or is it possible to do this, whatever. And so I would help him out with a few things here and there. No big deal really. And then there was a bigger project that he wanted help on at the bank, and I put in a few hours to help him out. And their president was thankful and appreciative, and he said, "Hey, I want to pay you for this. Like, what do we owe you?" And so I was like, "Oh, well, that's cool." So I told them, and they paid, and it was, it just kind of ended, and it was great. And that was probably in 2018, I think. And then last year, I was up visiting my parents, and we got to talking about, that the bank stuff we had worked on the year before, and said, "Hey, there's more work that we could have you do. And so why don't you come in and, listen to it and see if you want to do it." And I ended up sitting down with the president of the bank there, and he said, if you're serious about this, you should just form a company, and, we'll be your first client, and you can, help us as you want. And he said, if you just want to work with us, it's up to you. If you don't want to form a company, fine. If you do, great. But if you're going to work with anyone else, you should go down that road. And so kind of that, in combination with having been at the kind of personal growth conference, where I met Ashley, the kind of money, life, all those topics were kind of blended together. And so in combination of those two things was kind of what kicked me off to actually do it. And so it was about a year ago, I think it was July 7th last year, that I started officially. And so now it's been about a year. And yeah,
happy 1 year anniversary. It's
thank
literally
you.
just happened.
Yes.
That's exciting.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah. So I'm learning about what I like to do, what I don't like to do. So it's still on the side. It's still very much small and, those things, but trying to see where it could go.
It's all about timing. Ashley and I talked about that recently when she was up here. I kept telling her, don't worry about certain things. It's all about timing. Or we got rained out kayaking one day, and I said, don't worry about it. It's meant to be. It's all about timing. And the next night we had a great time. So just like you started on the side, and then your business grew, and it's all about timing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I wasn't necessarily looking for it, but it was kind of the natural next step. And so it was, it was a little bit of having the faith that it would turn into something. And it certainly could be bigger than I've forced it or, kept it to be, whatever it is. I haven't, put tons of money in trying to market everywhere and have all these clients, because I just don't have the time to do it, still having a day job. So that's where I'm, looking to always have a little bit more work, but not so much that I just spend every waking moment doing that.
I think it's very exciting. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
It's just exciting to see where you've been the last year.
So,
I mean,
engineeredworkflows.com if you need help with Excel.
Yeah, that's great. We'll put a link in our description box for you.
Yeah. Can you say that one more time?
engineeredworkflows.com.
Okay.
Very cool. I'm trying to think. Do I have any more questions?
I always have a million questions.
Okay, go for it then. Robin will keep us here until 11 at night.
I will. No.
Chatty.
Yeah. Anything that you would like to give to our listeners as a friendly reminder, helpful tip, something about running and starting your own business?
Oh, man.
All at once.
Yeah. All in one
me.
sentence.
I want
one sentence.
Go and do it.
Yeah. Perfect.
I mean, honestly, I think I have the trait of just being able to decide and do, and it's not the same in everybody. Some people it's decide, struggle, maybe decide again and then do, which is totally fine as long as you get to the do. Mine
that's good.
Is kind of a very short period. Usually, like if I decide, I'm going to do the marathon, I decided I literally wrote down the schedule that night and started, and actually I didn't post anything about it until the 5th of the month, because it felt ridiculous to me to tell everyone that I was going to do this, but, tell other people what you're doing. And I think it helps. And even if, I'm not a person, I don't post very much to Facebook. I don't count likes or comments, those kinds of things. But if you get, one or two people that just give you that thumbs up, it's just a little bit of motivation that I'm going to do it one more time. And it's not that you need, a massive following. If your one friend likes and they're the only one who likes every single photo you post, it is just a little bit of motivation that you may need to get to the next step. And I think just deciding and worrying about it all after you start is the way to go.
That's really good. I love that.
Mm-hmm. I do too. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you. Anything else, Robin?
I think we're good. We really appreciate your time, Mark.
Thank
it has been
you.
such a pleasure getting to know you. You already had the pleasure of knowing Ashley.
I feel
it has been great. I tell people I'm not a stalker. I'm really not, but it was fun and energetic to watch you go through your training and then getting the marathon, your family cheering you on, and then hitting 100 miles each month. I can't wait for your 6-month goal.
Yeah, thank you. And it's been a lot of love from the family. My wife especially deals with the kids when I'm out on the long runs on Saturday and Sundays. So she's been amazing.
That's great.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, thank you again for coming on. And again, we'll post all the links in the descriptions. And for our listeners, until next time, stay awesome.
And keep reaching for your anything.
Bye, guys.
Bye.